Hello and welcome to the latest updates in Jurassic news. Pretend I have a newscaster type voice. I do not. Where's Walter when you need him? We recently reported that David Leitch was in talks to helm the next film in the Jurassic franchise, an ambitiously scheduled movie with Universal planning to release it on July 2nd, 2025, a mere 17 months from now. Those talks did not pan out well, with the dreaded creative differences rearing their heads. A source for The Hollywood Reporter informed us that, due to Universal's eagerness for a quick turnaround, coupled with a script they already like, from original Jurassic Park screenwriter David Coep no less, the new film needed someone who was more of a shooter. There's no time for new ideas, they needed somebody to bring their existing ideas to life. And then for a time, no new news was forthcoming. But now, thanks to a new report last night from Deadline, it seems that talented director Gareth Edwards is in talks to take over directorial duties for the next movie, with a source stating that final negotiations are currently taking place, and Edwards has spent the past week discussing the role with executives at Universal and impressing the producers Steven Spielberg and Frank Marshall. Let's take a look at some of Gareth Edwards' previous blockbuster films. Whilst he directed the superb Monsters back in 2010, it was the 2014 release of Godzilla that brought him fully into the blockbuster mainstream, with the film that launched the modern Monsterverse. Opinions remain mixed on the film, with some citing a lack of screen time for Godzilla and boring protagonists after Bryan Cranston's character was killed off as the primary problems. But for my money, it's not only the best Monsterverse movie, but one of the very best Godzilla movies. It's a melancholic and haunting piece of film that manages to ground the titular kaiju in a way that hasn't been seen since. The skydiving scene remains my favourite scene in any Godzilla film. Godzilla 2014 made just over $500 million at the box office. Edwards would then follow that up with his highest rated film, and for a lot of us, the high point of modern Star Wars output, along with the recent Andor TV series, Rogue One. Taking a story that was always going to end in tragedy and infusing it with his flair for aesthetics, personality, interesting sci-fi concepts, and of course the appropriate melancholy, it felt like something entirely new for the modern iteration of the franchise. For me, an unbiased news reporter who shouldn't be injecting their personal opinions, it felt like a piece of sci-fi that could stand on its own 2 feet as a piece of cinema rather than just as a piece of good Star Wars media, and that's not something the franchise has often managed. Rogue One would go on to gross over $1 billion. Finally, last year, he released The Creator, a piece of original sci-fi. Whilst the film wasn't a hit on the level of Rogue One, it did have a lot going against it, namely trying to launch an original piece of science fiction in 2023 without too many household names to launch the piece. That, coupled with the odd marketing and economic downturn, means the film made barely over $100 million on an $80 million production budget. And it's worth noting that production budgets do not include advertising. The real cost is usually around double the projected production cost. It was, however, a beautifully made film with some interesting ideas, and it showed that Edwards is to be taken more than seriously as a science fiction director. Despite not making its money back, it was also surprisingly cheap at $80 million, given the lavish production and spectacular effects, something that will surely have attracted Universal to Edwards as a director. With his history of producing science fiction films that, usually, turn a more than healthy profit, it's easy to see why Universal are looking to hire Edwards for the next movie. On a personal note, Edwards is one of my favourite directors, and I think he's a far more inspiring choice than David Leitch was. Whilst I do not expect the franchise to fully return to its more grounded and slower paced roots, Edwards' tendency towards heavier science fiction concepts, exceptional visual effects, which is unsurprising, he himself actually began as a visual effects artist, and the visual storytelling style he has, similar to the likes of indeed Steven Spielberg and James Cameron, he really feels like the ideal choice for the modern Jurassic franchise. I don't want to hype this up too much. It's not his script after all, and it remains to be seen how much directorial verve he'll be allowed to impart, and hell, if he even officially gets the job. But it's safe to say this news has made me a lot more excited for the next film than I was previously. How would you feel about Gareth Edwards as director of the next Jurassic film? Are you excited, or did you not enjoy his previous projects? Did you see Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage? Do you have thoughts? Let us know down below, and thank you for tuning in. Good night and good luck. You stay classy, San Diego, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. Bye.